Hello everybody, welcome to Monday Morning Must Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfeld, and here are 3 important things to pay attention to for the upcoming trading week. Now, before we dive into that, last week was pretty monumental. There are speeches over the course of history that make markets or just society go, wow, that was an incredible speech. And on Wednesday, we had one of those from Jerome Powell. He said something that was very different than his normal talk track, and it was critical for the markets and the market movement. He said, "We no longer state that ongoing increases will be appropriate to quell inflation." Then he proceeded to say some additional policy firming may be appropriate. Now, of course, over the past few months, he's been saying we are going to raise relatively aggressively these rates just to make sure we fight inflation. And all of a sudden, this is kind of a little bit of a backpedal. Markets thought maybe, just maybe, we would see a pause here coming up. And then, of course, later on, he said, we expect Fed funds futures rate to be 5.1% by the end of the year, which means another rate increase by the end of the year. That said, what does it all mean? It means market volatility. We had a lot of that last week, some great trading opportunities or investing ones if you're looking for some bottom fishing potentially on some of these financial stocks that got beaten up because of even more banking crisis. So let's get away from that stuff for a second and dive into what's happening this week that I can tell you is going on, and that is going to be earnings. We haven't done this for 2 weeks because there has not been a lot of great earnings. Let's start things off on Monday. Now, there's 1,023 companies reporting, so a lot of companies. However, most are international. We start things off on Monday with Carnival Cruise Line. Tuesday brings you Micron Technologies, Lululemon, Walgreens Boots Alliance, McCormick Company, and Dave & Buster's. Wednesday, you've got Paychex and Cintas. Thursday, you've got BlackBerry, and that's pretty much it. You don't have much going on. Friday is pretty much a dead zone day, so we'll just leave that one quiet. Maybe a nice peaceful Friday for a change. Now, during his speech, Jerome Powell did cite some key economic data that was driving the Fed's decision on rates, those being inflation and growth. Talking about GDP. So let's go look at some economic data here to kind of set the tone for where we're at and what's coming out this week. That economic data really starts with inflation. So let's look at the Core PCE price index, which is expected to come out Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And as you can see on this chart, the previous reading was 0.6%, slightly higher than what they expected. And of course, Jerome Powell citing that in his speech and press conference last Wednesday, really saying that this is the important metric they're looking for. Now, the number is expected to come out at, drum roll please, and bring me a red arrow if you would. Here comes my red arrow. 0.4% is where they're expected it to come in at. And that is, of course, the expectation that is set. Anything above or below that could create a lot of volatility. And I'll be honest, just be careful trading at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, period, regardless of what this number is, because there could be a lot of market volatility. Now, the good news is that comes out 1 hour before the market opens, so you shouldn't have too much to worry about if you're one of those normal equity market traders. That will already be priced into what's going on with our markets. Now, that's the inflation side of things. Of course, one of the other factors that's critical to our economy is GDP, gross domestic product. How are we growing as a country? What are we producing? Gotta be proud, America. Well, the GDP numbers have not been looking so good. So we'll move on to that part of our discussion right now. And here is your final GDP numbers. Now, remember, we've had the advanced, we've had the preliminary, and all of those have come out actually fairly decent. Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, you also have an announcement coming out for that GDP, and this is going to be the final, basically the final revision of it. Now, when you look at this number, the previous one you can see there was 3.2%. That's quarter over quarter. Now, the expectations right now, another red arrow if you would, are going to be 2.7% is what they're expecting. So a slight decrease in the GDP number, which of course is not good. We would like to see that number continue to increase to the upside. But hey, we'll take a positive number of 2.7 versus the negative numbers that we saw a couple of quarters ago. Now, this is the major stuff that's happening for this week, but I'm sure you guys all know there's going to be a lot more happening in our financial markets. There is always something that pops up. Some of those companies reporting earnings might impact the markets, but I think this week is really going to be driven by economic data. And keep your eye on any time Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, or any really high up official starts talking about the financial markets. Could have tremendous waves. That, my friends, is your Monday Morning Must Knows. We'll see you next week.